Hello, everybody. And thank y'all for joining me here. And let me say something. Y'all know me. I'm Bigg AL the H.N.I.C. And folks, we got a pretty good show today, I think. Something, hopefully you learned something from it. I know I did. And we're going to talk about a couple of things. One, why are we as blacks left out of the history books? Why are we learning about European history? Because I don't give a damn about France. I really don't. Napoleon, King George, I could care less. Okay, but we get taught that. Y'all remember your history lessons? You got taught that.
Big shot to Toussaint, though, right?
Well, yeah. There's a couple of brothers. There's a couple of brothers out there that in European history, But I'm just saying, for the most part, here in American history, we've been left out of it. Now since 1619, when our ancestors first arrived in bondage to the shores of America as slaves, we've helped shape the history of America. And we have tilled the soil, built the buildings, raised babies that weren't ours, toiled in hot fields under almost unbearable conditions, yet we persevered. And we are hoping that each day of anguish was a day closer to freedom. But the great thing was that my people were never broken. We were bent, but we were never broken. And our intelligence and our creativity was constantly on display. When I talk about history, listen to this. These are some of the things that we invented. Okay? The mailbox in 1891 by Philip Downing. The traffic light in 1922 by Garrett Morris. The automatic gear shift 1932, Richard Spikes. Charles Dryer in 1832 by George T. I'm sorry, the clothes dryer. I said Charles Dryer. The clothes dryer, excuse me. We invented the clothes dryer in 1892. The clothes dryer in 1892. Did you know that? George T. invented that. Automatic elevator doors. That tripped me out. Okay? So we didn't invent the elevator. We invented the automatic elevator doors. Remember, they used to have a man inside the elevator that pulled the doors open for you and closed the doors, etc. Well, we put that sucker out of a job. But we invented the automatic elevator doors. We did that in 1887. Mr. Alexander Miles, my man. We invented the folding chairs in 1889 by John Purdy. Remember the chair that hit that lady on that pier in Alabama just a little while ago? Boom! Yeah, that's right. We invented that. We invented that. Cracked her head right open. Boom! Okay? The gas heating furnace in 1919 was invented by a black woman. Your gas furnace that you use every day was invented by a black woman. None of these people, with the possible exception of Garrett Morgan, got any credit for their inventions. None of them. Okay? So why does American history exclude us, black people? Why do they teach us European history but not African history, not Caribbean history? Why is the tragedy of our existence due to the existence of hate, bigotry, prejudice, downplayed, even omitted in our history books? Because that plays a huge part in why we're not there. Because we're definitely good enough to be there. We definitely contributed to America in a huge way. We really did. A lot of those things were stolen from us, and other people got credit for it, but we contributed. But I got to now. Okay, now I'm gonna keep it real simple for you guys. The reason why we are omitted from the history books. The reason is quite simple. White people do not want to look in the mirror and see what they have done. They don't want to look in the mirror and think that they're bad or that they're hateful or they're prejudiced, etc. They don't want. They don't want. It's because it takes a hard look. It takes a hard look, man. When you're sitting there and judging everybody based on what they look like, and they don't look like you. They don't want to be reminded of the suffering they put other races through due to their arrogance of feeling superior. The bias that anyone that does not look like them was inferior to them. Uh, you know, they had this arrogance that black people were inferior. And get this, they had no empirical evidence. There was nothing scientific saying that black people were less intelligent than white people. Absolutely nothing. So guess what? The scientists in America and in Europe decided we're going to prove that black people are inferior. We're going to prove that they're not as intelligent. Now keep in mind now, you're trying to prove, instead of trying to get the facts, instead of trying to figure out the truth, you already have a certain premise that you're trying to prove. So if you're trying to prove that someone is not as intelligent, you're going to find proof of it. And if you don't find proof, you're going to ignore those things that don't add into your quote unquote proof. Okay? Again, and if I didn't say so, this episode is a episode of, or a segment of Freedom is Not Free. If you want to call in, 757-964-9367. I'm here with Powered by Virginia. Okay, with the Powered by Virginia Radio Network. You can also catch us on live365.com as well to get the audio part of it. Okay, so, you know, it's kind of irresponsible for scientists to have a premise saying, I want to prove this guy is stupid, instead of saying, I'm going to prove how intelligent this person is or isn't. You know, and this happened back in the early 1900s. And everybody was okay with that. Every white person was. Now this all went to hell, you know, because everything was against blacks and Asians and everyone else that was not white. You know, so the scientific research kind of fell flat. But what gained traction was the prevalent thought amongst whites that we are better, we are superior. And it gave them a reason to continue to use bias and prejudice towards blacks, and to help keep us in our place since we weren't as good. Pretty amazing, right? Now, it's amazing because we're good enough to serve the white race, but we're not good enough to be equal to them. Now, once again, I want to slow down a little bit here because I don't want to get into the critical race theory and all that kind of stuff, et cetera. That gets a little complicated and at times convoluted. So we're not going to do that. But what I will say is that with the bias, the prejudice, the hatred that came along with that, it really manifested over and over and over again until it hit a bit of a crescendo. Now remember, this is called Freedom is Not Free. And I'm going to give you 3 examples of people of shoulder that you're standing on that are giving you, that's right, you the freedom to live where you want to live. It gives you the freedom to open up a business. It gives you the freedom to drink out of any water fountain you choose. It gives you the freedom to marry whom you want to marry. It gives you the freedom to twerk in Walmart if you want to. Okay? There's a lot of people that show that you're standing on top of that are giving you that freedom that you may not realize it nor appreciate. Okay? But that freedom came at a cost. And it's the cost that I'm going to talk to you about. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is called the Elaine, Arkansas Race Massacre. I talked about this about a year or so ago. It happened September 30th to October 2nd of 1919. It is considered the bloodiest, how can I put this? More people died and were killed in this massacre than any other massacre, than any other group of people that were killed, with the exception of the Civil War. Can you imagine that? Okay. Several hundred blacks were killed and only 5 white men. The best estimate comes to a total of 856 people that were killed. Only 5 of those 856 were white. Okay, I'm going to say it again. 856 people were estimated to be killed, and only 5 were white. Now, we know 5 white men were killed. We know that. We don't know how many black people were killed because the governor really tried to cover it up. And he tried hard to cover that up, man. Okay? That's not in your history books. That's not in history books. But, you know, it's the bloodiest massacre of innocent people in the United States history. Now, the governor, his name was Brought. Governor brought, he brought in, excuse me. Thank you. He brought in 600 troops from Camp Pike. They were armed with 12 gun machine gun battalions. Now, a 12 gun is that you have it was like a Gatling gun, and you got 12 barrels, okay, and you, okay, and you got 12 bullets coming at you, man, just ripping you apart, okay. Now, after the killings, the governor tried to cover. I think we got a call here. Hold on. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for calling in. What's your name? Hey.
How informative your show is. I love your show. These are things that a lot of our community don't know or unaware of. And
Thank you.
You bring it to Paraguay, Virginia, and so you bring the great news, and I appreciate you.
Hey, I appreciate you for listening, and make sure we can get on Facebook that you that you send it to other people, okay?
Absolutely. Well, you know what it is. I'm definitely gonna sing you some love, But blessings to you and your show.
Hey, thanks for calling in. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Love you. Blessings.
Take care. Yeah. So, folks, and I want to thank that call for calling in. All righty. So the governor tried to cover it up because he realized, oh shit, I fucked up. Okay. You know, the NAACP flew in, came there. Other people came there, but once again, what they said, what the newspaper said was, the governor said that the blacks were planning an insurrection. We've heard that recently, haven't we? The blacks are planning an insurrection which had to be subdued. Okay, even the newspaper stated that there was an insurrection that was being planned by blacks. Now there were none of this was true. Now understand, none of this was true. There was no insurrection. There were no blacks gathering to kill whites, and that's what the newspaper says. You know, blacks have holding an insurrection to kill whites. That's what the newspaper said. That would piss me off too, man. If I saw a newspaper article, whites are planning to kill blacks. Where the fuck are they? Where are they? Let's go get them. Yeah. You know, so I mean, everything was off. But now remember, it wasn't true, but there were still 100 black men that were arrested, and 12 of them were sentenced to death over nothing. They arrested 100 black men. And then they put 12 that were sentenced to death. Now the positive thing is that the NAACP intervened, and they with their litigation, which took years, by the way, those 12 men got off. They were acquitted. Okay, they were not killed. You know, but keep in mind, you're an innocent man. You're sitting there, man. You working your farm, and some guy says, "Yeah, he's one of them," and you get arrested. And without any evidence, you're sentenced to death. And that's how it was back then. Okay, they had no freedom. These were sharecroppers. These were farmers. Okay, and where they lived in this part of Arkansas. Although they were free, the blacks outnumbered the whites 10-1, but they were being cheated by whites because they needed white services. There were no black people that had stores and so forth. So when they were picking the cotton or whatever, or whether it's a corn or whatever they were trying to sell, okay, to make money, what was happening was the white people that they were going to were changing prices on them. So if you were a sharecropper, you couldn't, no matter what you did, you could not get out of debt. No matter if you had a really great crop, they dropped the price on you. You think you're going to get this much? Nah, I'll give you this much, boy. And understand, this is hard for us to understand, but you couldn't do a damn thing about it. You couldn't do a damn thing about it because you were not in charge. You were not equal. You weren't. And some of you people out there, well, that was me, I would. Shut your mouth. If that were you, you'd be doing the same damn thing, trying to figure out how to get out of that mess. And they did try to figure a way out. Okay, so what happened? So they were at the mercy of all the white merchants. So the blacks actually organized and formed a union called Progressive Farmers and Household Union of America. Man, the whites were furious. They tried to break up this union, threatening the blacks that go in there. Boy, if you go in there and meet, we going, you know. And they just kept meeting, etc., forming an alliance and forming a plan on how they're going to attack this problem. Okay, they weren't bothering anybody. However, during the same time, the white merchants saw their profits dwindling because the blacks were like, well, you know, I'll tell you what, the blacks go, I think I'm supposed to get that. I'm gonna give you this, boy. No, sir. What you gonna do? You can't do nothing. No one else gonna buy it. I know that, sir. I'd rather let my food rot than let you buy it. You know how much strength that took? You know how much courage that took? Because these guys have families. These guys have families. So the men had to be in on it. Also, their women had to be on it too. Can you imagine? Okay, babe, it's going to be tough, but, you know, it's been tough anyway. So you do what you got to do, etc. We'll try to hold it down the best we can. We'll live off the land the best we can. We'll do whatever best we can. The whites did not like that independence. They did not like the union. And so what they did was they started coming up with something. They started threatening the blacks. Okay, that didn't work. Started beating them up. That didn't work. So they charged. So when the blacks met at a church, they charged the blacks, etc. And back then, you know, everybody had a gun, and the blacks fought back. You know, they shot into the church, and the blacks shot back. And the blacks apparently were better shots than the whites that shot into the church. And that's how it all started. Blacks were minding their own business at a church meeting, and then a couple of police officers, some whites, came in trying to break everything up, and that's what started it. And that's what became the bloodiest massacre of innocent people in the history of the United States. Again, outside of the Civil War. You know, I'm going to tell you again, you are standing on top of a lot of people that have made this, that have civilized civilized America for you, that have made it easy for you to do the things you want to do. You have no excuse. You have no excuse. Because those people were talking about their lives. They could have had all their lives. They could have had their children killed, their wife killed, you know, themselves killed. I can't even imagine the courage that it took to say, I'm tired of this. I'm going to change it. I want to get what I deserve. I'm going to stand up like a man. Can you believe the courage that took? Knowing that you could die in a minute, knowing that you can go to sleep and they could burn your house down. knowing that the merchant could turn around and say, you know something, when it comes to Lyle Seabrooks, we're not going to sell him anything. Don't sell him nothing. It took a lot of courage. And a lot of those people did not die for nothing. But the governor sent the men from Camp Pike in there to kill the black people. The black people thought that the army was there to help them. They were coming out. They were coming out of the woods. They were coming out of the cornfields. We're over here. We're over here. You're over. And the guy said, "Oh, just cut them down. Men, women, children, everybody just ripped apart." I don't even want to, I can't even imagine how frightening that could be. Or you thinking the cavalry's coming in to help you, but they're coming in to kill you. Innocent people. Innocent people. Your freedom is not free. The next example I have is a young lady named Lena Baker. This is a fascinating story to me. Lena Baker was convicted of murdering a white man. She was a black maid in Georgia, and she was considered a second-class citizen with no rights. Now, once again, this is in the early 1900s in Georgia, where black people have no rights. And just to understand, when we say have no rights, you have no rights. It's hard for us to believe now. I'll give you an extreme example, and it's not that extreme. I'm married, and I'm sitting on my porch, and a white man comes and said, "Hey, Al, where that wife of yours? I sure miss her." And this is something that was documented, by the way. So he decides to go in a room while she's dressing to go to work and have sex with her. That black man had better sit right where he was sitting and not do shit. Wife is screaming, "Get off of me. Leave me alone. Stop." And the husband can't do a thing because they will either kill him, burn down his house, stop him from working. No rights means no rights. As a man, as a father, as a former husband, I can't even imagine that. Because I'm thinking somebody going to die. Me, him, both. They can walk in your house and do whatever they wanted to do. So, she was a black maid in Georgia. She was a second-class citizen with no rights, a mother of 3. She started working for a white man named Ernest Knight. He was an older white man and had a broken leg when she started working for him. He sexually assaulted her over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, to the point that he would imprison her for days for sex. Mind you, she had 3 kids. Okay? He didn't give a damn about her kids. Didn't give a damn about her kids. But he kept raping her and raping her. And the odd thing was, the people, it's a small town. They knew what was going on. His son knew what was going on. But instead of them telling the father, "Hey man, back off," blah, blah, they got on her and told her to leave him alone. Told her to stay away from him. Told her stop doing what she's doing. the townspeople, and the son. The son beat her up. The son beat her up. And there's no one she could have talked to about that. She couldn't go to the sheriff. She couldn't go anywhere. Again, no rights means no rights. This woman was suffering. So, on the evening of April 29th, 1944, she escaped Ernest Knight, but he caught up with her and dragged him to a mill. Now, he owned the mill. He owned the mill. And apparently, Lena had had enough. Because she fought him. She had decided she was not going to be raped again. And when she told him this, he pulled a gun on her. And apparently they started wrestling. You know, she wasn't a small woman. They started wrestling, said he's an older guy, etc. And somehow she got the gun from him. Now, he was very upset, so he picked up a pipe. And at that point, he charged her. When he charged her, she shot him. Now, as soon as she shot and killed him, as soon as she did that, she went and got the sheriff and told the sheriff. Well, she said it was self-defense. He did this, that. Now, he knew. Now, the sheriff and everybody else knew what was going on, but they arrested her anyway. Now, this is what got me. She was convicted by an all-white male jury at the end of the first day of trial. At the end of there was one day of trial, and they brought in a verdict. Yeah, it wasn't the jury of her peers. That's for doggone sure. You know, and keep in mind too, at that particular time, no black person in Georgia could serve on a jury. No black person in Georgia could serve on a jury, so she could never have a jury of her peers. It just couldn't happen. You know, is by our standards, no. But those states did their own thing. You know, those southern states, especially Georgia, Louisiana, Alabama. You know, they all did their own thing. So when I talk to you all about freedom is not free, hear me and hear what I'm saying, because you're standing on Lena Baker's shoulders. She fought for herself, for her kids. Even after she got the gun, the dude still charged her with a pipe, determined to rape her again and beat her up. And she ended his life in self-defense. And she had asked for clemency from the governor. The governor studied the case for 90 days and said no. Now, I don't know why he said no, because there's absolutely no evidence that it was anything other than self-defense. But it was a black woman killing a white man, and that's the only thing that was important. Nobody gave a damn that she was raped many times. Nobody gave a damn that she was held captive to have sex with for 3 days at a time, for days at a time. I said 3 days, but it's days at a time. Nobody thought about the woman's children, and she was electrocuted on March 5th, 1945 in the state of Georgia. She's the only woman to be electrocuted in the state of Georgia. And so you guys walk around here, a lot of you people, especially you young people, walk around like you've always had this freedom. You walk around here unappreciative of the things that people like Lena Baker have done. You know, you walk around not understanding your history of the Elaine massacre. Now, keep in mind, and there were many of them. That was the summer of 1919, which is called the Red Summer. That's when they had massacres in Arkansas, Virginia, and other places. I think New York, but it was called the Red Summer. But it's not in history books. They don't teach you that. White people don't want you to know these things because it makes them look bad. They don't want you to know that, hey, Florida and Louisiana used black babies as bait for the alligators. Hence the phrase gator bait. They would take them, anchor them to the shore, wait for a crocodile to come on shore, because the kids in the water splashing and crying, making all kinds of havoc and noise. And then the alligator would come up, and then they would shoot it. Those things are now hidden. They don't want you to see. They don't want you to. They don't want to know about. They don't want you to know about that. It's not in history books. It's not in history books. That's something so vile and contemptible. You know, they gave mom, I think, $5. They would give mom $5 because they thought that what the hunter said was, yeah, they like black babies better than white babies. So a lot of people in Louisiana at the time were poor. Okay, and now I'm gonna say it, the white women got paid like $2 because they said they don't like white babies as much as they like black babies. Makes no sense. Makes no sense at all. But there are certain things that they're trying to hide from us. And the simple reason is that the white people do not want to look at themselves. They would rather try to alter history or try to cover up history or remove statues and all that foolishness. But see, the thing about history is that if we don't know it, then we might repeat it. And that's what's important about history. If you know your history, chances are you're not going to repeat the bad part of it. You're just not. You know. Now we also have the next one here is now. Now you've heard of Henry Ford, right? But have you heard of Charles Richard Patterson? He was born in 1833 to 1910. And he was born in Virginia. His family moved to Ohio in 41. He worked at a place called Dines and Simpson Carriage and Coach Company, Coach Makers Company, and he learned how to blacksmith. He learned how to make frames. What they did was they made frames for the carriages and coaches that were drawn by horses. Okay, and that's how they made their money. Okay, he partnered with a guy named J.P. Lowe, who was a white guy, and they formed their own company called, which is a carriage builder company, carriage building company, and they employed 10 people by 1888. They did this. They formed the company in 1873, and they had 10 people employed by 1888, which is considered very successful at the time. Okay, it was a successful company. Now, in 1893, Patterson bought out, who was a black man, bought out his white partner, and he renamed it the C.R. Patterson and Son Company. His son was named Frederick, named after Frederick Douglass. And his son took over the company in 1910 when his father died. And he decided to get into the horseless carriage. Okay, so he was actually competing with Henry Ford and others, and he was actually putting out some very good cars because they knew how to do the carriage. They already were doing bodies. Okay, it was just a matter of getting the engines in, and also they knew how to work on the engines and make the engines. So they did the whole 9 yards. They were just a one-stop shop, and their cars were supposed to be very, very good. Now they put out 150 cars. I don't think you can find one now. But they put out 150 cars, these 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 cars are supposed to be very, very good. Now, what happened with the horseless carriage was that Henry Ford had an assembly line. Remember, everybody had a specialty. Okay, you will put the body on the frame. You put the car. You put the engine into the car. You did etc. You put the wheels on. Everybody had a specialty. Everyone had a specialty, and that specialty made it easier to actually get the car made much quicker than much quicker than Patterson and Son could do. So Patterson went out to try to get loans, and he tried to get loans, and he couldn't get any loans. The bank would not give him any money to create an assembly line like Henry Ford did. Okay, so uh, so they started. Well, and just to back up for a minute, they started rolling out cars September 23rd, 1915. Okay, September 20th, 1915. And they had two different cars. They had one car that was kind of for a family, the other one was a luxury car. They cost like $685 and then $685, and the other one the luxury car cost $850. This is basically in today's market about $17,000 and $22,000. Okay, but they couldn't keep up with Henry Ford, and Henry Ford was the one that was actually Henry Ford was the was the icon. He was the one at the top, and they could not compete with them, and the banks would not loan him money. Now he had money, etc. And why do you think the reason why he did not get loans from the bank? That's right. Ding 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 ding. Prejudice, racism. That was the only reason, because he had a company that's been around for years, making good money. Okay, he had a good business plan because he was already doing it. All he needed to compete was getting that assembly line to get the cars out quicker. Now, my understanding as of today, you cannot find any of those cars, and that the cars are called the Greenville. Well, let me just make sure I got it right here. Okay, the cars are called the. Oh, yeah, okay. The cars are called the Greenville. I lost my page here. Okay, anyway. I can't. They're the green. I'm sorry. They're called Patterson cars. But what he did was when he could not get the assembly line going, he started building buses. He started building frames and bodies for buses, and he did that for a number of years. Okay, and once again, very astute businessman. They did very, very good work. So I found from what I could find out, the cars were very good. Although since they made so few cars, you cannot find one of those cars today. They're thinking they're all going to be they're all gone. Okay, so anyway, so it is so folks, when I tell you guys that when I have these shows, freedom is not free. Okay, sometimes in the comments I get like, yeah, Al, that's tough, man, but we don't have to do that stuff today. I'm not saying that you have to do it today. I'm not saying you have to suffer. I'm just saying that you have to respect the people that went through it. You have to respect what they did, how they took their lives in their hands. There's nothing today that can equate to what they went through. There's nothing today that can equate to what they went through. I mean, imagine, you're trying to form a union and someone decided they don't like it because they don't want to be held accountable. They don't want to pay you fair wages. They don't want to pay you fair money for your goods. So they decide to just kill you. We talk to him, we yell, we try to intimidate him. He's not being intimidated. Okay, well, the governor says, well, send in those soldiers from Camp Pike and make sure they got one of those Gatling gun things. Okay, and so it is pretty. you can't equate it. You cannot equate it. And imagine them covering this up, keeping it out of history. Not even a footnote. Not even a footnote in history. Not even a footnote in history. Lena Baker, not a footnote in history. You know, C.R. Patterson and Sons, the first and only black automotive manufacturer. Not even a footnote in history. Gone. Gone. All because certain people, in this case white people, want you to believe that, hey, you know, everything that you got because of them. The reason why you're free is because of them. The reason why you have prosperity is because of them. I don't buy it. There are too many black people that have lived and died and fought for America, fought for themselves, fought for their people, and it's a shame to not be recognized. And I don't understand. And once again, when you look at the history books, and I'm a bit of a history buff, as you may have already ascertained, and look at the history books, for them to talk about King George V and then test us on it. They test us on that stuff. King George V, Henry VIII, Napoleon. I don't give a damn. Because it means nothing to me. Now, about slavery, what they test you on? Slavery began in 1619 on the shores of Virginia, blah, 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 blah. And approximately, I would say 3 miles from me, right now, from here, there's a sign that says, the first slaves in America. It's right there in Fort Monroe. A little teeny sign. We need to be included in history because we had a lot to do with the history. We need to be included. Okay? It is a doggone shame that I have to teach my kids outside of the school as far as about their own history, which I did. You know, and they just looked at it as history. Yeah, man, whatever. Yeah. What I got to know about this? But see, everybody else has their own history. You know, if you're Irish, you have your own history. If you're Italian, you have your own history. If you know, Jewish, you have your own history, etc. Black people, we're the only ones that don't know our own history. We're the only ones that don't know it. We are the only ones that don't know our own history, and that is a shame, and that's a shame on us. If you're a parent out there and you're not teaching your kids this history, it's a shame on you. I had sent my grandkids, I forgot the name of the manufacturer. They have these Black History cards. Okay, they're like flashcards, and they're really good, you know. And I sent those to my grandkids. So every time I get something like that, I send them to my grandkids so they can. Now whether they study them, I don't know. I don't know what my kids are doing. If my kids are actually getting them to study that, but you know, I'm hoping that because Granddad sent them, that they're going to look at them. And they may put them down, but maybe they'll come back later and say, "Hey, man, that was pretty cool. I vaguely remember that because I think Granddad sent those cards or he said something about it, whatever," and he'll come back to that. Teach your children our history. Let them know that they are standing on a lot of shoulders, a lot of bodies of people that look just like them. And they're average people, man. They're average people doing above average and sometimes heroic things. And we have to make sure that we don't let our history die. Because that's what I'm afraid of, is that our history is going to die. Years ago, man, I was listening to a guy talking about his history. He was I think it was Italian. Yeah, Italian. Yeah, Italian. And he was talking about his Italian grandmother, great grandmother, etc., where they came from and all that. I mean, that was so cool. Now I can't go back as far as he did with my history. My history pretty much begins right here in Virginia. You know, and I don't have, and once again, I can't go that far. And that is a shame, but it is what it is. But what I can do is learn about everyone else that made it possible. Trust me, white people will drag out Martin Luther King every single time. Martin, you were cool. Don't get me wrong, brother. Dr. King, I respect you. Okay, I respect you, man. But there are a lot of guys that came before you that was doing this. A lot of people came before you that did this. As a matter of fact, you didn't even want to do it when you first started. You didn't want to do it. You had to be talked into it. So what I want to tell you is go ahead, educate your kids, educate yourself, and appreciate the courage that our people had. As I said, we were bowed, but we were never broken. And that's something you have to understand. There was a time in certain states we had no rights at all. No rights at all. We couldn't vote, couldn't drink the same water, couldn't live in the same place, couldn't have a house like white people. We couldn't have education like white people. We had no rights. None. But yet and still, we send our kids to school and they learn about European history, not African history. They learn about France and England and so forth. I get it. So I get it. I mean, we came a lot of England came over here, etc. and so forth. But see, my family was never in England. My family was someplace else. So England, it means a lot more to some people than it does to me. England doesn't mean anything to me. Because more than likely, I didn't ask to come here. At least my family didn't, or my ancestors didn't. Listen, this segment, Your Freedom is Not Free, is one that's dear to my heart. Because I see kids every day, I see people every day doing things and not realizing that, wow, we couldn't do that a few years ago. Wow, you couldn't say that a few years ago. But yet and still, no one seems to realize that or appreciate it. And no disrespect to any white person. If a white person is listening to this, I'm not saying white people are bad. But what I am saying is that the reason why it's kept out of schools is because white people don't want to look bad. They don't want to look at themselves as the aggressors in all of this hate, prejudice, bigotry. But they are. There's more white people than anybody. So the reverse could not be true because we are no one else. There's no other culture that's a minority. That's the majority. That's the majority. I mean, there were so many massacres in 1919. The Red Summer. There were so many. There were so many black businesses and black cities that were prosperous, and then they were destroyed because of jealous whites. Your freedom is not free. So listen, I'm going to leave you with this. Teach your children black history, because apparently no one else is going to do it. Teach yourselves black history so you can teach others about that. Okay? Be the griot in your family when it comes to black history. Letting everybody know what where it came from, who a family member here. I would also tell you too, man, listen, have family gatherings, have family gatherings where everybody can talk about family members, etc., about the ones that are not here. Keep them alive. Okay? Keep them alive. But listen, folks, and listen, I want to thank y'all for taking the time to sit with me and to listen to what I have to say. Once again, I'm getting ready to sign out. Y'all know me. I am Bigg AL the H.N.I.C. This is powered by Virginia, and the name of my podcast is Let Me Say Something. This segment is called Freedom is Not Free. Thank y'all. Ty, you got my music? All righty. Hey, y'all, I'm out. Have a great one. Love y'all.